When this man's lawyers stood up in court, they said something you don't expect to hear in a case like this. They said his own confession didn't match the crime.
I honestly believe that if it wasn't for my wife and my kids, I probably would be a serial killer. I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
He had no criminal record, not one arrest, a wife, 2 kids, a steady job as a software engineer in a small town in New York. For years, no detective at the police department was actively working his case full-time. It sat in a file. The only person still chasing it was a woman named Liz, a volunteer with no badge, no police training, and no paycheck. Then one night, Stephen Smirk changed everything himself. He called police. He confessed, and later, his own defense team tried to say that confession couldn't be fully trusted. So who was right? This is the case of Stephen Smirk and the 1994 murder of Robin Lawrence. The case Liz refused to let stay cold. By the end, you'll know exactly how police proved this case, beyond just his word. On November 20th, 1994, in Springfield, Virginia, a man named Ollie Lawrence was away on a work trip. He couldn't reach his wife, Robin, by phone for several days, so he called a neighbor and asked her to check on his wife. What that neighbor found inside the house on Reseca Lane would stay open for the next 29 years. Robin War Lawrence was 37 years old. She worked as an artist and as the director of advertising at a tire shop in Manassas. She was found dead inside her own home. She had been stabbed. In another room of that same house, her 2-year-old daughter, Nicole, was found alive. She had been alone with her mother's body for several days before anyone came. Police looked at the scene closely. Nothing had been stolen. The doors didn't show signs of a break-in. There was no fight between Robin and anyone in her life that police could find. No ex, no enemy, no clear reason at all. When a husband is out of town and his wife is killed, police almost always start by looking at him. That's exactly what happened here. Ollie Lawrence took a polygraph test, a lie detector test. He gave police proof of where he had been the whole time. Nothing connected him to the crime. He was cleared. That left police with almost nothing to go on. The one real clue was small, a pink washcloth in Robin's bathroom with blood on it that wasn't hers. In 1994, that blood gave them a DNA profile. But back then, a DNA profile by itself didn't mean much. There was no big database to check it against. There was no suspect to test it against either. With no leads left to follow, the case did what most cases like it do. It went cold. 25 years of silence. No arrests, no answers, no name. Just a cold case file sitting in a cabinet somewhere in Fairfax County, with no detective working it full-time, and a blood sample that nobody had been able to explain, until someone decided to try one more thing. In 2019, that old blood from 1994 got sent to a private lab called Parabon Nanolabs. And what this lab does, it's not like anything that existed when this crime happened. They don't just search for a match. They look inside the DNA itself. They rebuild, piece by piece. They can tell you what someone looked like, skin tone, eye color, hair, just from the blood they left behind. What came back stopped people in their tracks. White male, fair skin, green eyes, light hair, not a name, not a suspect. Just a face that had been hiding inside that old blood sample for 25 years. But that was only the beginning. Because from that DNA, the lab started building something else entirely. A family tree, branch by branch, name by name, tracing backwards through generations, looking for anyone alive today who might share blood with whoever left that sample behind. And when that family tree was finally finished, it landed on the desk of someone with no police training, no badge, no paycheck, just a volunteer, a woman the public records only ever refer to as Liz. Nobody knows exactly what she saw in that family tree, but whatever it was, she couldn't walk away from it.
But I thought it was worth trying.
Working a family tree built from DNA isn't like anything you've seen on television. There's no moment where a name lights up on a screen, no alarm, no breakthrough music. Just spreadsheets, dead ends, branches that lead nowhere, days of work that produce absolutely nothing. For 3 years, that's exactly what Liz did. Quietly, alone, unpaid. Most people would have stopped. Most people would have looked at the mountain of dead ends and walked away. But something kept pulling her back. One more branch, one more name, one more connection to chase down. And then, after 3 years, one name finally fit. The right physical description, the right age, a documented connection to Virginia in 1994. Stephen Smirk. He'd served in the U.S. Army, stationed at Fort Myer in Arlington, less than 10 miles from where Robin Lawrence was killed. After his service, he disappeared into a completely ordinary life. Moved to Niskayuna, New York. Married, 2 kids, a career as a software engineer, no criminal record, not even a parking ticket. On paper, this man had never done a single thing wrong in his life. Detective Melissa Wallace looked at that background and felt nothing but doubt. She couldn't reconcile it.
Background, I'm thinking, there's no way this is our guy.
The man in those records didn't look like a killer, didn't sound like one, didn't live like one. But after 29 years, with no suspect, no arrest, no justice for Robin Lawrence, this was the only name they had. So Detectives Wallace and John Long got in a car and made the long drive north to New York. They had one shot at this. And they knew if they spooked him, it was over. When Wallace and Long got to Smirk's home, they kept things simple. They didn't say his name was connected to a murder. They didn't say who the victim was.
All we said is we are detectives from Fairfax County, Virginia, and we're looking into a cold case from the 90s.
Smirk's reaction was almost nothing.
Stone-faced.
There was no surprise, there was no fear.
No shock, no nerves, no questions about why 2 detectives from another state were standing on his porch. Then came a moment that, looking back, should have told them more than it did at the time. They asked if he'd give a DNA sample. He said yes right away. No hesitation, no asking for a lawyer. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis later called that kind of quick, easy cooperation highly unusual. And it's worth being fair here. Plenty of innocent people say yes to a DNA test simply because they have nothing to hide and just want it over with. One calm answer doesn't prove guilt on its own. What made this different is what happened only a few hours later. Wallace and Long left that day still doubting their own 3-year-old lead. They checked into a hotel that night, planning to drive the long way back to Virginia in the morning, with no suspect confirmed. That night, Detective Wallace's phone rang. Stephen Smirk, the same man who, a few hours earlier, had calmly handed over his DNA without asking why, had driven himself to the Niskayuna Police Department, on his own, with no DNA results back yet. Nothing was forcing him to talk. He chose to. Detective Long knew what was at stake the moment they sat down. This wasn't just a conversation. It had to be done right, in case it was used in court later.
That could potentially be used in court down the road.
In the recorded interview that followed, Smirk told detectives, almost without being asked, what happened the night Robin Lawrence died. He said he was 22 years old that night, a soldier. He'd been drinking beer and had taken ephedrine, a stimulant. Something in his head told him he needed to kill someone.
I knew that I was going to kill somebody. I did not know who I was going to kill. It was like this overbearing thought in my brain that I just had to kill somebody.
He said he drove toward Robin's neighborhood for one simple reason. He knew the area. Friends of his had lived nearby. He had never met Robin Lawrence in his life. There was no fight, no history, no reason tied to her at all. He picked her house because it was there.
Had you had any contact with her, or spoke to her, or anything like that?
No. I didn't even, to be honest with you, didn't even know who lived there. I never met this person before or seen her or anything.
Detective Wallace asked him one question that would tie his words directly to the evidence Fairfax County had held for 29 years. She asked if he'd been hurt that night.
She clawed at my face. I had a little bit of a scar here.
Did you ever go into her bathroom at all?
I don't remember that. If I did go into the bathroom, it would have been to look at what she did to my face.
Robin had fought back. She scratched her attacker hard enough to draw blood. The same blood that ended up on a washcloth in her bathroom, where Smirk said he went afterward to check the damage to his face. Then, almost like an afterthought, Smirk said the line this case is now remembered for.
I honestly believe that if it wasn't for my wife and my kids, I probably would be a serial killer. I am a serial killer who's only killed once.
1 week later, lab results came back. Smirk's DNA matched the blood on that washcloth. Prosecutors later said the odds it belonged to anyone else were about 1 in 7 million. One detail in this case stood out even to the detective who took the confession. Smirk said, over and over, that Robin Lawrence was the only person he had ever killed. Former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole looked at the case and gave some context. She pointed to other known cases, like BTK and the Golden State Killer, where the person went years, sometimes decades, without killing again. It's worth saying clearly, there is no public record that Smirk was ever given a formal diagnosis of anything. This is an expert talking about patterns seen in other cases, not a doctor's opinion on Smirk himself. What we do know, in his own words, is this. Smirk said he didn't feel bad about the killing itself. His only stated regret was that, one day, it would cost him his freedom.
How do I say this? I don't know you're recording. I don't feel anything for the family. I can't say that any other way. I feel bad that I did it because I knew someday my personal freedom would be affected.
For 29 years, he built a normal-looking life around that one act. A wife, 2 kids, a steady job, with no outward sign that anyone has reported of what he had done. Smirk was sent back to Virginia and charged with first-degree murder. At a preliminary hearing on April 4, 2024, prosecutor Steve Descano played Smirk's full confession for the court and for Robin's family, who were hearing these details for the first time. The confession told the story. The evidence is what proved it true. Robin's niece, Lauren Ovens, saw Smirk in person for the first time that day. But here's the part that almost never makes it into the story. Smirk's own defense team pushed back. They argued that some details in his confession didn't fully match the actual facts of the crime scene. That's a real challenge, and it deserves to be taken seriously. A confession alone, even a detailed one, isn't proof by itself. Courts know that false or partly wrong confessions happen. So what actually settled the question wasn't just what Smirk said, it was what matched. The scar on his face matched the scratch Robin left fighting back. The location he described matched the bathroom, where the washcloth was found. And most of all, the DNA on that washcloth matched his, at odds of about 1 in 7 million. On October 4, 2024, Stephen Smirk pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. On March 7, 2025, he was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Under his plea deal, he can ask for parole starting in 2037, when he turns 65. Robin's daughter, Nicole, the 2-year-old found alive and alone in that house back in 1994, grew into an adult without ever knowing what happened to her mother. She finally got an answer. Not because a detective worked this case full-time for 30 years straight, but because one volunteer, with no badge and no obligation to keep going, said one more thing to herself again and again, until the truth had nowhere left to hide.
The Warren Lawrence family are grateful that justice has finally been done for the murder of our beloved Robin.